Merry Christmas, Neil.
Merry Christmas, Matt.
It's a little bit out of the ordinary. We're going to do a Christmas special.
Yeah, I've actually been looking forward to this because what we're going to do in this one is relive a story from a year ago when we saved Christmas at our last company by planning the Christmas party that there was zero budget for. It ran out at the end of the year, end of December. We were crowdfunding to try and bring more funds in. Wasn't looking good. We'd launched, the platform was doing nothing. We were days away from the company folding, basically. And
yeah, morale was pretty low.
It was. Everyone, we were still working on the tech, but everyone had in the back of their minds, in the front of their minds, am I coming back to a job after Christmas? And we said, we took it on ourselves, really. There was no one who asked us. We said, all right, we can. Let's make a Christmas party, one that they'll never forget. And and in this episode, we're going to just relive that and talk through what we did. There's lots of parallels with what we do now. Stick with us, and hopefully you'll enjoy the story as we retell it.
Let's go save Christmas.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm Neil.
And I'm Matt, and we are the Invention Junkies.
We lost our jobs at a high-tech startup, so have 3 months to start a successful design business on our own.
Listen in to follow our story, relive our failures, and join us on this race against the clock.
So I think you set the scene of the reason why we were looking at doing something like this, but we actually started a little bit before, and so we'd had success with one previous team building day, and I don't think we need to go into the detail of that, but we'd been a little bit spurred on by the success we'd had with the team, and after a short break, thought there'd probably be a time to do another one. And originally, we were looking at Halloween as the date that we wanted to launch for. And I guess this comes back to us always liking having a theme. I think I'm like a really strong advocate for themes tying things together. And I liked the idea that Halloween is kind of like, it propagates throughout your life. So you're like, when you're going to do a Halloween themed thing at work, you're already a bit primed for it. You're a bit more in the mood. And it's the same with Christmas, like you go out, there's Christmas lights and whatever. So you're always thinking about Christmas stuff. But we're going to do Halloween. And on the topic of, budget friendly, it was all about the materials. What can we get an excess of, cheap, that people can test ideas on in a way that's kind of like fun. And I think we'd already agreed by that point that it was about encouraging failure.
Yeah, it was. And the other thing with all the materials was it needs to be able to not make the planet worse off by getting through these materials. So there was no lots of plastic or anything that just doesn't biodegrade or anything like that. That was sort of one of the key things. So with Halloween, we'd focused all around pumpkins because there was always in it. And even then we felt bad about it. It's food waste and all this thing. And, but I think we sort of decided, well, pumpkins are grown specifically for decoration at this time of year, and there's always hundreds left over and you see them in the streets. So it's not going to be too bad because, as long as we compost it or, dispose of them in the right way, we can live with that morally. That would be okay.
Yeah. But I guess we should probably talk a bit about like the goal of what the team day was. So we'd agreed on the topic of, encouraging failure. And that comes from, I guess, research that we would normally do about strong teams, engineering teams, successful teams, high-performing teams, all of those fun buzzwords. We love reading around the topics. And a lot of the good design processes and product development processes encourage you to learn through failure, whether that's by prototyping and testing prototypes, whether that's by doing simulations, or whatever the mechanism is to encourage failure. It's a common problem, especially in engineering, where everyone tries to be a perfectionist and you want to try and get things right the first time, and so you can spend years and years developing this thing, and then it's perfect, but it's the wrong thing, or another thing that you didn't anticipate is not right about it. And so it's really about iterating and testing things in relevant ways, so that when you do have a product that's not even finished, because it doesn't need to be perfect, it at least addresses, like a user need or a problem or something like that.
Fail fast. That was always the king, wasn't it? So you can only get there by failing. So you got to fail fast. Don't be too much of a perfectionist. Make those mistakes so you can learn from what they are, because you can't learn it without making them, and then move on. And that's something that we, even this week, we've been pushing, encouraging, and we kind of have a little bit of a sport, I think, with when the other's sort of trying to overthink something, you like win a point when you say you're overthinking this, because actually we should not be perfect. We was cutting an angle on a piece of wood the other day, and I think we mentioned last week. I was like, it serves no function. Let's just move on and leave it. And you're like, oh damn it, you got me on that one.
You can't help it, right? Yeah,
well, that's it. Yeah. So we worked for a company that was developing hardware. I think it's been a while now, so we can say a little bit more about it. But we were developing linear propulsion on a track-based system. So kind of, you could liken it to a rail gun, basically. Lots of linear motors that propelled something along a track. So we had a lot of these tracks around a big workshop facility. One in the big loop on the floor, one that actually went up the wall. And the one up the wall was a few meters, so it propelled things vertically very fast if you wanted to. And
with really high acceleration as well. We don't have to go into the detail, but the benefit of the one on the wall is that you got a lot more bang for your buck in terms of how quickly it could move stuff.
Yeah, it was a continuous array of coils that energized, and it went very fast. So we wanted to use the tools and the toys at our disposal. We've always said it was an engineer's playground. Because we were developing Fastenet, and we wanted to use that as part of this team building day. Team building day Christmas party. So an activity where everybody sort of got involved, used the tracks that we'd created in a different way, and had fun and learnt something at the same time. So that was always our brief. Let's use this track, and it was the vertical track, the one that went up the wall for this one, and we wanted to do something that was themed with the event. So originally it was Halloween, so we said, pumpkins. Let's use it to launch pumpkins. And
even before that, when we were, so I think just to go through the process ever so slightly, we try and use the double diamond, which we've mentioned before, as much as possible. And that's about divergent thinking, where you expand, you think of all the possible things you can do, and then convergent thinking, where you eliminate some of those ideas based on rules and requirements and what fits. And so in our divergent process, we were like, okay, if it's Halloween, maybe it's like a house of horrors, and we use one track to, smash it with a baseball bat if we stick a baseball bat to the thing that moves.
That's right, I forgot about that.
It was going to be this series of challenges where these pumpkins are just getting mashed up and obliterated, and the teams had to.
We had a straight section, didn't we? And we said, let's see if we can put a blast screen up.
Yeah.
And then fire the thing into the screen, and it was designing packaging to protect it after we sort of put it through the House of Horrors. That's right. Yeah, that was. It's a shame that never
we
went
had
ahead.
this grand idea of being in a ballistics lab, and it was pretty unrealistic. But
Yeah. But Halloween didn't happen because we were crowdfunding for the 3 months leading up to Christmas.
Yeah.
And the amount of work required. Well, I say crowdfunding. There was, funding goals, efforts, and the amount of work we had to do. Everyone had to sort of chip in with pitches and presentations and everything. We just didn't have the time, and we could have cobbled something together, but it wouldn't have been to our standard, us being perfectionists and all. And I think the biggest fear we had was hosting an event where you've got the whole company stop work for a day, and you've put this thing together, and it doesn't work very well, and there's a flat point or something that's just doesn't work well. And we wanted it to be a full day, and we thought about everything, even where the breaks were. And we'll get into the detail of it, but we wanted it to be so that everyone walked away going, "This was great," and we thought about where everyone's minds were at throughout the whole period of time. We just wouldn't have had that ready for October for Halloween, so it became our Christmas team building day.
Yeah, and I think that there was a turning point as well, because making the decision that it wasn't going to be ready for Halloween is, I guess it's like, we're always like agile in the way we try and think we'll have a plan, but the plan needs to change if you can't deliver the right thing. And it came back to what we were trying to get out of the tests. And we just tried to cram like too many things into this day. It was like, oh, we're going to use this track, or we're going to use this track. And it's like, yeah, but we have to test that beforehand to make sure it works. So now we've got like weeks and weeks of testing so that the outcome for the teams is fair and they feel like they've had a good time at the end of it as well. And we're like, okay, this is just not going to happen. Like, and I think that's how we arrived at only using the track on the wall, was because like it needed to be repeatable. And gravity was the most repeatable force we had available to us. Yeah.
So then, let's talk a little bit about what we moved on to from pumpkins. We were racking our brains as to how we could use the same sort of methodology, turn a House of Horrors into a Christmas themed activity.
Yeah.
And we decided on, using the story. What's the story to what the day is? And the story we come up with was that the team were going to be Santa's helpers, and Santa has developed a new vertical launching system for gifts, which was our vertical track, and everyone was getting flower pots for Christmas to encourage, growing their own food and things like that. And so the goal was they had to design a packaging for flower pots that we were actually going to launch over 3 meters up in the air, and they had to survive. So that was our sort of starting point, and everything sort of was built around that.
Yeah. And out of context, it's like, why flower pots? And the story was half crafted around the material that we'd found, but also like we'd worked both ways with it. And it was because we knew that clay was a relatively sustainable material, was relatively low energy intensity, relatively locally sourced. Like there was so much that actually went into finding something. We could get them cheap. It was like less than £1 for the main material that they were going to use during the day. And we could get them in a quantity that we needed, blah, blah, blah. There were like all of these criteria that we'd come up with when looking for materials. I'm racking my brain to think of other things that we'd also thought of, because I'm sure there's
we thought we got sort of glue so they could stick them back together and decorate the ones that they'd broken. And we said, well, that we could give them to people who do gardening. People use broken flower pots for drainage in the bottom of their existing flower pots. And there was lots on, but we stuck with flower pots, and we made it work. We made it work for the day.
Yeah.
And the point of learning from failure was that we made sure everyone practiced a lot with packaging. And the biggest gripe we've always had with these sorts of things is that you do something like, if you've ever done a team building day where you've had to build a bridge out of newspaper, you get one shot at it and it's fine, but then you always leave a bit disappointed that you didn't have another go building something better, because now you've learnt the material. You're like, oh, if only I'd have done it this way, I would have had a better experience. So we wanted people to have that, build something, see where it went wrong, build it again, see where it went wrong. And I think we gave them, was it 3 flower pots?
Yeah, I think they had three
small, about 10 centimeters tall flower pots, and everyone got 3 flower pots each. So there was 4 teams, and we said, right, so the morning was learn everything you can from using sheets of cardboard and these flower pots, and we gave them sort of paper tape, again, sort of recyclable, and we had a mock chimney, and which was basically a set of shelves, but it was the IKEA shelves, so they could push from different levels to increase the height that it dropped, so they could see how high they got. But it ended up being people just chucking these things up in the air and letting them land to see how their packaging performed, and where the weak points were and how they could make it better. And people had a lot of fun with it, I think.
Yeah, I think just around like the broader structure of the day before we get into the afternoon, we, as you said, we tried to think about everything from even having like leeway on the start time because some people show up late. We'd have like, the TV running, the presentation ready, people can get teas and coffees, and we'd have like this timeline with, like margins of error around each window. And it was like, oh, okay, if the activity 1 overruns, then we can, eat into break 1 or whatever.
Yeah.
And generally, we find that people need quite a lot of encouragement to get the creative juices going and to relax enough to actually get involved in things like this. So we would always recommend some sort of warm-up exercise, and we'd even like increment the kind of level of involvement with the warm-up. So we'd start with something really basic. I think it was everyone kind of like stand up in the room. Oh, in fact, we wouldn't even have chairs in the room, because if people are sitting down, then they're like, kind of withdrawn away from the group.
No tables. We took all the tables out.
Yeah.
We'll push them to the side. So there was people were encouraged. They hated us. We encouraged interaction. First thing in the morning, people come in and we're like, right, you're gonna, we did the things that people hated. The group participation, but we it was necessary to get everyone sort of in the right frame of mind to be involved.
You just have to rip it off, and like once people accept that this is the tone of the day, they do like sink into it a bit more, and you can see people like, in the first hour, like they're like, okay, yeah, this is happening, I'm gonna have to accept it, and then like the switch is flicked and they just get involved. But yeah, so one of the ones that we'd do just to get people, it's like the practice of putting your hand up or like saying something out loud in front of a group, and it would just be like, get everyone in house order number. And then there's a conversation, right? They have to talk to each other. They have to be like, oh, I'm number X or...
Yeah. So then we'd check and we'd say, right, what number are you? And we'd check, and they'd do a big line around the room and make sure that everyone's numbered. So it forces people to talk, basically. and do something a little bit fun. And that was one of the things we put them through.
And then the next one is a game coined by someone we used to work with, but I love it because it's just about divergence convergence. And so word tennis, or I'm sure there's other names for this game, but you basically say words of association. So I say apple, you say
banana.
Yeah, sure, right. And you keep going like that, so you might end up doing all the fruits and then you run out and you have to move on to something else. With divergent convergent word tennis, you say words of association when you're in game mode type A. So we'd have on the screen, like green association. And then when you flick a button, it's dissociation. So what is a word that's completely different? So I say apple and you say...
socks.
Yeah, exactly. And what that does is it like really brilliantly forces you into two modes of thinking where you're ready to creatively diverge because you're saying something completely different, but you're also in this like team spirit of saying something similar. And so it means that hopefully the goal is when you come into a creative group activity, you've now engaged both these parts of your thinking. You're a little bit more ready to practice both of them.
Yeah.
So we get everyone in the room to sort of line up, and we'd go through that, and sort of willingly they get involved, and then we like I think we do process of elimination. So if you get it wrong, then we stop, and people like slowly drop out, and you get to the last few, and we go, okay, yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah, it didn't matter about who won. It was
exactly.
Go for the exercise was the main thing. Yeah. It's worth talking about a little bit how we set the teams as well. There's so much prep that goes into these things. So we'd previously done a day where we'd done DISC profiling, DISC profiling, where you it's one of the personality tests where you understand what personality type you are and how you think. And when we put the teams together, we had a list of everyone's personality type, and we had arranged them so that there was a mix in each team, because you always, if you had a group of the extroverts together, that would be chaos. You kind of want like a nice balance across the board. So we'd say, right, well, that person, we've got one of them, and we sort of spread them out, and also checked about the previous team building day so that it wasn't the same team, and we mixed people up. So we'd had these like carefully crafted teams, so that everyone worked as best they could together, and you had a mix of you some strong voices and some weaker voices, and those sorts of things. We had a big spread. And then we, rather than just naming what the teams were, again, that was another warm-up exercise where people had to find their team.
And I really like that because it's almost like, it's going to sound like really silly, but I think if you're involved in the process of discovering your own team, it feels like you're a bit more part of it, like you've had a bit of a say in it. And that wasn't necessarily the intention, it was just a fun game. But the point was basically, you've got a label on your back, and you have to go around the room and work out what you are, and then by process of working out what other people are in the room, you would know that you fit into a collection of whatever other things there are. And we'd practiced it before on the first team day, but it was, I think, successful.
Yeah, you could ask what, yes, no questions. So you can say, am I this, am I that, and you have to try and, it's kind of like the post-it on the forehead thing, except once you found out what you are, so for example, one was Christmas songs, and then we had, someone was Last Christmas by Wham or whatever, and the album cover on the back. So then once you figured out who you are, you could try and find other people who's going to be in your team. And we had Christmas foods. I forget the other stuff. Maybe decorations.
Maybe Christmas animals. Oh, there were parts of a snowman. That was a good one. So it was some sticks, some stones, a carrot, and snow, I think, was the group.
Yeah. So then the teams, we just sort of set them off, said, right, you've all got this. We obviously named who's got what on each person's back, stuck them on, and they had to go and find their own teams. So that is, again, another warm-up exercise. So by this point, people were ready. They were warm.
Yeah, and then we'd I can't remember when we'd do it. We'd do the challenge, or would we do the? Because what we'd do is we'd always try and like sprinkle in a bit of the learning. We didn't want it to be like too learning heavy, and then it feels like you're kind of just listening to a lecture. It's always activity based. But there was something that we're huge fans of, which is it comes from Never Split the Difference, and it's the how to listen. So what they always say is that part of negotiation is actually just understanding the person that you're talking to. And there's an exercise in mirroring labeling, and we've probably talked about this before, but it's how you get someone to open up and reveal sort of deeper truths behind their background.
And we put it in because we'd noticed that whenever we were talking to customers or customer meetings, there was a few people that just never listened to what the customer was saying or asked the questions that they want. And they just sort of couldn't help but talk about us, and was like, okay, this is going to be a useful exercise for a few people. Let's do this as it's another tool that we can help people with. As it happened, most of the people that we were aiming at never turned up. Or they would turn up late or whatever it was. But anyway, it was a fun activity, and it was I think that some people took something from it. Not everybody, but
Yeah. So we'd sprinkle a little bit of this, learning in throughout the day. I think that one went medium well. It probably wasn't the best received task because we tried to get everyone involved in doing it, and there was a lot of criticism that came from doing it. I think it's maybe because people aren't used to doing things like that, and it's difficult as well because they already knew the people in the room, and so like the how to listen and try and uncover truths, it was a bit like forced, I guess, to a degree.
I always find as well with the how to listens, people. I was the same mindset. I used to think, well, I've got ears, like, but it's not how to hear. It's like how to understand the root of what they're saying, like how to sort of be on the same page with whatever they're talking about, how to sort of zone into where this is coming from, where these thoughts are coming from, like really understand the person, and that comes under the umbrella of how to listen, so you can sort of you synchronize the thinking, so you go, okay, you're thinking that because of this, and it was that sort of side of it that some people it was very new to them, so it would have taken a lot of it needed more than a 10-minute exercise to do that.
Yeah, I think. It's true. I'd like just a quick shout out. I think it is like a Jedi mind trick. You literally only have to say a few things, and you can get people to reveal layers and layers and layers, and you can go for like half an hour without saying anything and just let this person talk and get so much out of it if you need to in that circumstance. So massive recommendation for Never Split the Difference.
Yeah, big time. Right. So we then went into the prototype, and we gave people 3 flower pots, 3 small flower pots, unlimited access to card and
crafting materials.
Sure. And we encouraged them to break their pots by dropping them. but and also testing their packaging ideas. And it was all about testing, test and fail. The more you fail, the faster you'll go. And we were being the annoying sort of hosts, cheering, forcing, "Hooray! You've broke something!"
Yeah.
When something broke, and they're like, "Why is this good?" Celebrating their failures, being over enthusiastic, annoying colleagues.
Hi, we're the Invention Junkies, and that's kind of our brand, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then, so that was it. That was all the learning in the morning.
Yeah, and so for a little context, when we did the first Team Day challenge, we had this this kind of like surprise reveal in the afternoon. So they had to do one thing forwards, and then we were like, "Aha, I got you. Now you have to do it backwards." And they were like,
changed the
"Oh,
rules.
right, okay,
Yeah,
we'll go do this thing." And it's a kind of like classic game technique to add an element of complexity, challenge, and it also it's this back to divergent convergent thinking. You've done something for a set of rules, and then the rules change, and you have to like practice changing.
And we were
the way
always
you
saying,
think
like,
about it.
we're the typical customer. Customers change their requirements all the time.
Yeah,
So when people
yeah.
get comfortable, I know exactly what we're going to do. We're like, aha, we're changing it. So that's what we did in this one as well. So after lunch.
But they were expecting it. They were expecting it.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
we knew we had to build around. Was they're going to be like, "Oh, right, what are we actually going to do now?"
Yeah, exactly. So we come in, set everybody down. Okay, here's what you're going to do. And we walked in with these big flower pots. They were maybe 30 centimeters, maybe bigger. And this is what was going to be launched from our vertical track. They're going to be flung up into the ceiling. And they have to create packaging that's going to cradle them so that they don't break when they fall. But that wasn't the only criteria. We had a few other criteria as well. So one was Centre had to deliver their flower pot in perfect condition. And if they all broke, then we were the judges on how broke they were. There was no real metric other than judges' decision is final. We said there was how the pot's decorated. So obviously there's a range of people. Some people like the engineering and the design. Some people like doing artsy and crafty things. So that was, the decoration was a score. So they were ranked against each other. So first, second, third, fourth. And
the decoration's a really important one. Sorry, just because it creates this attachment to the pot. It's now something that you've got time invested in.
And you don't want it to break.
Exactly. You're even more invested in protecting it from the drop.
Yeah. And the last one, which was quite unique, which I really liked, was the the unboxing experience. So for anyone who's not aware, companies like Apple will spend a lot of money and a lot of time on making sure that when you take that lid off your phone case, it there's enough air resistance so it opens slowly enough so you get that nice sort of the experience of unboxing. And how things are packaged so nicely so that you get your product opening. Unboxing is an experience in itself. That's why sort of unboxing videos do so well on YouTube. So there was a point for the unboxing experience. So and they were ranked against each other. So before testing, we'd made sure that we did the unboxing and then we repackaged. They had to repackage ready for launch. So that was the third one. And it was I found that quite interesting because you had groups of people that focused purely on the engineering, how this box will stop this thing from breaking, and then completely disregarded the other.
Even though they were equally weighted. And that was part of the point was we didn't want to just assess one characteristic of personalities, right? Like if it was just engineering, then surely the engineers will do really well and the people that aren't in engineering will maybe not do as well. So you have to have this split of characteristics so that the whole point, right, is it's a team building exercise. So you need to use the different traits of the different people in the team to be able to be the champion at the challenge.
Yeah. I remember now the judging, we had a couple of people who couldn't make it in person. So we video called. We didn't say who was on which team. We just said this is the 4 decorated pots. You can rank them first, second, third, fourth, and they had to do that. So we always did it so that there was no, there was a couple of people who always would find a loophole, who would always challenge the judges and say it's an outrage, it's unfair, it's a fix. So we made sure there was none of that, and it was the results are the results, and it's done as fairly as possible, and there's no opinion, so no one knew who did what.
And it was also so we could sidestep any of the blame going into work the next day.
yeah. It's a fix. So that was the 3 criteria, and obviously the most fun one was making this thing survive the launch.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth talking a little bit about just how much preparation went in to launching.
I'm so glad because I was. It was my favorite part. Like the day is obviously a huge amount of fun, but I think for like 6 weeks, we were getting in early, and we were always like the first in the office anyway. But we had this secret.
7. Sometimes we got in at 6, didn't we? We said,
Exactly.
right, let's get up super early. Let's get in at 6 a.m. So we've got the track, and we can do these tests before anyone comes in, and we can, work out how to launch. And the problem was when you've got a vertical track that just goes up and down, it's very difficult to make something launch in an arc away from it because the forces are just vertical.
Just vertically, exactly.
Yeah. So let's test it. So we put a little ledge, and we just assumed that this thing would go up and this package would just flop away from it. But we didn't want it to come straight down. We wanted it to be projected away.
Like a nice arc, yeah.
Yeah. So flat level didn't work. Oh, we'll put an angle on it, and then that way that will. But then it turned out on an angle, it still just went up and down. It was like, oh, of course, because there's nothing forcing it this way. Yeah. So we spent weeks. We'd do it, and obviously we had to set up in the morning. We'd made a piece of scrap wood base to go on the carriage that moved up.
We had secret components. I mean, that was my favorite thing. Was we had this like block of wood that was slowly evolving week by week, but we had to hide it from the other engineers that were constantly in the workshop.
Yeah.
We had a secret like testing bit of code because of the way you control the machine. So we had to talk to one of the software engineers, have this like secret, they were called recipes, secret recipe that would like tweak each week, and we'd change the like acceleration, the height, the displacement, stuff like that. And I loved that we'd like hear the front door and we'd be like, oh, right, abort. We've got to
take it down. We're like, you can't go in the facility. We're just finishing up. Yeah. And then they'd be like, what are you talking about at 7 o'clock? I've just got in.
Yeah.
And there was, we ended up filming each one so we could analyze the video to see how this thing's leaving it. And that in itself was a good team building activity for the both of us.
Yeah.
Right? I had a great time just planning that. And at the end of it, we said, well, let's put a video together of all of the attempts. And we had how many prototypes was it? About 30, 32, something like that?
Yeah, it was in that ballpark.
Yeah, and 32 different configurations of mechanisms to launch this thing because we wanted that nice arc. And that's the other thing. We didn't want people saying, oh, it's not fair because theirs hit the thing and it cradled it on the way down and ours hit the floor. We wanted everyone to be launched away and it'd be completely fair and not clash with anything and that was that. So, I mean, it was getting close. We towards the end we were saying maybe this is a requirement that we don't need to have. We'll just launch it up and down and just see what happens. Until we managed to find a piece. I think it's like laminate flooring or something. A piece of wood with a bit of flex.
It was a little bit of a flex. Yeah.
So it was like a springboard. So we ended up making it really long. It was like, screw it, let's just make it as big as possible. Put this package on the end, and it launched it, and then it went boy, and it flapped so much that it cracked in half. But that ended up being a mistake that made it work because that shorter length was just the perfect amount of spring, and it was like, oh, perfect. It cracked at the point which it needed to, so that it was just stiff enough to launch something away. And not too flexible that it was going to break again. So that. But
I mean, we were still pretty stressed going into the day, right? Because we hadn't done enough testing with like we hadn't put plant pots on it because we didn't want to like just waste the plant plots.
Yeah.
So we were using like a weight wrapped up in a box, and that was our test. And we were like, this kind of feels like the same weight as the plant pot. And the box kept getting like smashed up because we dropped it like. You know, the 32 prototypes is not how many launches. We've done however many hundred of launches. And this box was so battered, we'd like put it in a new box and like tape it up, and then that would get destroyed, and we'd like try and keep fixing these boxes.
Yeah, wrap it. It was weight plates, wasn't it? We was using.
Yeah.
And the boxes was just getting absolutely hammered. I forgot about that part too. Brilliant. Yeah. And then we, do you remember we made a cardboard cutout of Santa's sleigh that went on the side of this carriage. So as it went up, it hid the springboard so that it was only on one side. So where you were standing from the boardroom, which had a window looking out over the facility, you could see the side of this thing going up the wall. And you could see the sleigh, and it looked like the gift went on the back of the sleigh. And even that was a rush job, because I think that morning...
you were painting it. Yeah.
I was painting this sleigh red, like, just in an hour before setup. So before we did the testing, we did the user experience, the unboxing, right? Do you remember
Of course, yeah.
And it was really... There were some that are really nice. I think there was a team that had... it was quite a petite package, and we had said, I forget if we put a size. We didn't say there was a size limit, but I think
No.
This one was quite small, and they had sort of made like a paper rope around. Figure of eight. So you sort of had to do this unboxing experience, and there was a layer to it, and you pulled out a layer, and it was a really nice for scraps of cardboard that worked really well. And there was another team that had made like an insert that went inside the flower pot, as well as sort of cardboard around the outside, and there was like a rope that, as you lifted the lid up, this flower pot came up with the lid. It was really,
some really nice thought that went into some of the
brilliant
unboxing.
Yeah, it was really good, really good.
And the decoration of the pots as well. Actually, some of them were like saleable because they looked so great. Like people would buy that in a shop.
Yeah. Exactly, which was, and then people put so much effort into them, they just didn't want them to break. They was like hoping their packaging would make them survive. And I remember we was doing the countdown. It was 5 minutes to go, and then there was one team that was engineer heavy, and I said, "Don't forget."
I just remembered this.
Don't forget the decoration is, you're going to be scored on that. And they were like, "Oh crap!" So there's like.
Yeah.
Quick, draw Christmas trees! So I remember them like scribbling on the side of the box.
And they were like cutting out stars and just like sticking stars on. And...
They'd focus so much on this big box to protect it that they had completely forgotten about all the other stuff.
My favourite thing is I don't even think they came last in the decoration scoring.
So anyway, and then it was time for the testing.
The big moment.
The big moment. Yeah.
So we had this set up. The launch room was ready. Everyone's standing sort of in a row along this window, like holding their breath as these things get launched. And we're equally holding our breath because we've never tested anything like this. They're unique box shapes. They're unique weights.
Yeah.
And we hit go.
Do you know what? You've just reminded me now. I remember the first one we launched, me and you were thinking, please have the ark.
Yeah.
Please leave the sleigh. That's all we wanted. And because, like you said, we'd not tested with the same weight and shape dynamics, and we'd only tested. Literally, it was a few days before we'd got the ark working. And so we were like, oh, please. And I remember it's on one of the videos of the day. The first package launched. And then the minute it left an arc, you went, yes!
And before anyone else even knew what was going on.
Yeah, and I was like, why is he so happy? It's not even landed yet. But it was just like, thank God it left the sleigh.
Yeah, it was just relief. But it was this beautiful like trajectory. We talked about doing a trebuchet as one of the ways of launching it. We never did it, but because of the reset and everything. But it did. It have that kind of like someone had thrown it through the air. It was beautiful. It landed. I don't think the first one broke when it landed. It was this really nice, satisfactory like smack as it hit the ground.
Yeah.
And then I think it was the last one where things went ever so slightly pear-shaped. And there was a supporting wire, shall we say, that was a part of this structure. And so we'd hit launch and the others had come off and everyone's like investigating and maybe one of them had broken a bit. And so we get to the last one, we put it on the platform, we hit launch and it launched a bit too well.
Well, no, the problem was this was the engineers. The box was massive. It was absolutely massive. And we hadn't put a maximum size limit on the requirements. And this is the thing when you're crafting the requirements, you kind of have to think of all the all the things people are going to do, and we didn't think someone would make something too big. So
Yep.
it actually went, it went up, and it was so big it hit one of the support wires above, which we hadn't even considered. Something
Yeah.
being that big. It nearly, there was this the vertical track had two sort of sides to it as well,
Yeah.
and I think it nearly hit the sides as well. It was very
Yeah.
very big. So
So it launches up, hits this wire, is like spinning, hits the side of the thing as it goes down, and we're like, right. And I genuinely can't remember if it survived or not. I think it
No,
was
that
broken.
one did, but the team didn't win because they had only focused on the packaging and not on any of the other criteria. It was just round in a box, scribbles on the side, and but the box was engineered to perfection, so it served its purpose. Yeah.
So I think coming out of the day, we had just this amazing feedback from everyone. Everyone really enjoyed it. And I think when you end on a high like that as well, it's like the day has really ramped up to this like pinnacle. And I think we'd planned it really well and just got such good feedback from everyone, the leaders of the business, right down to the engineers. I say that like they're at the bottom, but it was pretty flat.
Across the engineers.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the things that's led to where we are today, because I think at first we thought it was the team building that we were really good at, and I'm not saying we were bad, but looking back, I think it was the working on a process together like that, the going through process, the iterative cycle, the design steps, the thinking outside the box, and so much of reliving this story is present in what we're doing in the two products that we're developing at the moment. So it's just such a nice look back in this Christmassy time of year.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's, we had a couple of projects like this, which were passion projects. They weren't, core business projects, where we put our minds together and we had complete creative freedom. And I mean, that was one of the best things about working where we did. There was no, we had complete creative freedom, and we took advantage of that massively. And we worked so well together on the planning. So our ideas, they were sort of escalated. It was like, we were really good at batting ideas backwards and forwards, but instead of them being at the same level, they just exploded. So I remember I'd always sort of, think, oh my God, Matt's really good to bounce ideas off of, because I'd say one thing and you'd say, but what about this? And it made me think of something else. And I'm like, what about this? And then, we just get so excited about all these different things we could do. And well, it was more validation that actually we work well together. We should do this. There's something that works here.
Yeah. And 6 years later, no, I'm joking.
Yeah. But I mean, that's partly why we started with the team building. We spent 6 months in our spare time making an online team building course that follows these principles basically. And it's on our list to get that published on an online platform. So watch this space, because we do plan to get it out, and that's basically all of the format that went into this day we've put into a course that is ready to go. We just gotta get that out there.
Get it out there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think my final thought this Christmassy time would be think about how you can break the mold in your routine. Is there a work event that you can think outside the box for, or a family gathering where you could do some fun but budget friendly activities? It just takes a bit of thought and planning to make it successful.
I think the key is having fun. Like, if you're having fun, then it's easy. Yeah, and that's part of the thing. We did have fun planning it. I mean, there were definite stressful times, but if we wouldn't have found that fun, it wouldn't have gone the same way. But we were excited about what it could be and what we could make it be. So yeah. So as always, thanks everyone for listening, following along. We're seeing our numbers creep up on our listeners, which is it's so heartening to see more people joining in our journey. So thanks all of our new listeners. We do encourage you to
like, share, and subscribe.
Like, share, subscribe. No, seriously, drop us a line, send us a comment. Let us know what you like about these episodes, what you don't. We get some people that send us personal messages saying, "Oh, I like this, like that." by all means, comment on the socials about what you liked, and then other people get to see it, and maybe they'll join along too. That's our goal.
Yeah.
Build a following. So all that's left, I think, is to wish everybody a happy Christmas, if that's what you celebrate, a happy festive time of the year.
Yeah, happy holidays, whatever it is that you're holidaying for.
Yep. And we'll be back when we're back.
If we're back.
all the hints. Maybe join us next week.
Yeah. Right. Invention Junkies out. See you guys.
See ya.